agricultural deity, and then later the myth of his death and resurrection replaces his agricultural functions. They don't fit together with each other. Since the pharaoh is known to have regarded himself as Horus in life and Osiris in death, then it would be more fitting, I argue, to regard the pharaoh himself as the dying and rising god of Egypt for his role in regulating the flooding of the Nile and Ma'at. The changes in Osirian mythology from vegetation spirit to king and judge of the underworld happened concurrently with the absorption of such powers over agriculture and the developing Egyptian theology surrounding the office of pharaoh. So, like I said, unlike Osiris, the pharaoh has a divinity which regulates the agricultural cycle and which changes from being Horus to Osiris in death constitute the resurrection. Part E, connections to the Agursis of Melkart. Melkart. Melkart was the male aspect of the divine dyad in the Phoenician city of Tyre. Melkart. Comes from Melek Hart, king of the city. Of Tyre. Okay. So as Adon was the precursor of Adonis in Greek mythology, Baal, the role of Baal in the male aspect of the Tyrian mythological dyad was identified with Melkart, whose typology mimics Baal, but just has a better name. The Agursis is the ritual of the sacred marriage, where an effigy of Melkart was burnt, the smoke rises up into heaven, where it meets his consort, who revives him through the sacred marriage or sex, so that his resurrection may fertilize the land and maintain order in the city. Melkart does not appear to be used with the city of Tyre until the Iron Age, when the divine dyad in each Phoenician city begins to take place in an orderly function instead of this broad notion of the Canaanite pantheon its regional distinctions. Frazer argues that the common tradition of killing the monarch, either in the event that they acquired a blemish or in the fixed intervals of time, was seen as necessary to preserve the sanctity and ritual functions of his office. For we must not forget that the king has slain the character of a god, his death and resurrection as the only means of perpetuating the divine life unimpaired, being deemed necessary for the salvation of his people in the world. Additionally, which describe similar rituals from among the Canaanite peoples involving sacrifice on behalf of the king in honor of Kronos. Now that refers to the infant sacrifices which appear in writings connected with the Punics, the people of Carthage and its colonies. Okay, older accounts of child sacrifice appear later on, appear in the Bible and in accounts of various other sources, as like Diodorus, for example. This is just reinforcing the point that since the divine dyad were supposed to be the parents of the royal family, that the king was viewed to metaphysically go through the process of death and resurrection, which was being acted out in the ritual of burning his effigy. It was Melkart and the king at the same time, hence Melkart, king of the city. Diodorus 2014 connects the custom of Phoenician child sacrifice to sacred births in sequence with the Agursis festival. Note the Agurgis festival practiced by the ancient kings of Tyre at the helical rising of Sirius binary system for this specific purpose. Frequently, these beliefs in the necessary death and resurrection of the king are also accompanied by the belief that the office of kingship itself has a soul which must be ritually passed from incumbent to successor. Quick note on the Sothic lunar calendar. On the Sothic calendar, just the Sothic calendar. Okay. Now, the helical rising of the Sirius binary system was honored by children being conceived during that astronomical event, who would then be born 9 months later, and at that time ritually sacrificed and cremated, then buried in jars with the cremated remains of lambs who were being born in that same season. This conclusion was argued for by P.C. Schmitz in 2013. Frazer's argument that the Greek association of Demeter and Dionysus with the sacred pig must necessarily be true of the cult of Adonis or Baal in Syria solely because of mythological analogy. Solely because the mythological analogy prevents him from accepting the lamb as a more appropriate metaphor for Adonis, given this difference in the cultural background. P.C. Schmitz, 2013, cites the lamb sacrifices known to have occurred in Carthage and Tyre in concert with the Agursis of Melkart and the helical rising of the Sirius binary system. The children and lambs born on the Agursis of Melkart were sacrificed in pairs of one child and one lamb, which refutes Frazer's supposition that the veneration of the sacred pig in the cult of Dionysus was also part of the cult of Melkart and or Baal. It's important to distinction that there are many balls, which B-A-A-L, which can be conflated with one another. There is Baal of the Ugarites in the Bronze Age. There is the Baal of the Bible, and then there is the Baal of Byblos, and then there is the Baal of Tyre, which is also called Melkart from the Iron Age on. So those names need to be differentiated. Thank you. This concludes the end of part 6.